Hello and welcome to part 3 of the old padlock and key. In this video we're going to make this decorative part. You can see it there on the schematic, and this is the SVG file that I created to use as a means to an end. Link is in the description, so make sure you go and grab that if you like, and then we can import that under as an SVG, of course. So navigate to that, the file, and there it is. And there it is in Blender now. Oh, and by the way, you've only got about 24 hours left on my BB Toolkit Pro 25% discount. Links in the description, and I'll be using that, of course. There it is in this video. You don't have to use the add-on, of course. You can do all of these things just in the standard default Blender keyboard shortcuts and functions. But anyway, with that said and done, let's just rotate this on the x-axis and place that pretty much where we want it. So I'm going to select that, Shift S, cursor to selected. Now we can just press Shift S again, selection to cursor. Let's scale that up just a wee tad. Let's move it up a little bit. Just put it in the position that you like. Or you can create your own SVG file, of course, using Photoshop or Affinity Photo or Designer, Illustrator. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Oops, it's embedded in there. Let's make it a little bit in front there. Okay, let's make some space here. Let's look at the curve options for this SVG. Let's under geometry. Oops, firstly, let's apply the scale. Now that will work for curves. You can see there, that's now 1, 1, 1. However, if you try to apply the rotation, you will get an error. And that's not an add-on thing, that is a Blender thing. Happens with all curves, pretty much. So anyway, going back to our curve properties here in the right-hand side, you've got some 2D. We have a 2D option and a 3D option. So you can play around with that and see what happens if you select them. I'm going to leave it at 2D. So when that's done, let's give the SVG, or the curve now, a bit of a depth, a bit of a thickness. And then scroll down a little more and get round to the bevel. Let's try and make this edges look a bit less sharp. So we'll give it ever so small bevel. You've got some other options there you can play around with, but now I've turned the wireframe on there, and you can see that it is highly dense, which tends to happen with SVG files. You've got some bad geometry there as well. All these vertices clumped up together there, or when you convert it to a mesh anyway. So I think there needs to be a lot of tidying up to do on this. Yes, indeed. After questioning my life choices with this SVG, that is me, and that is the SVG file. So you've got to get your hands dirty, I'm afraid, and clean it all up manually. So I converted it through. I'll show you the steps I went through, basically. This is the original SVG file. As you just saw. So if we tab into edit mode, there's all our Bezier curve points and all those lovely things. This is the same one, and this is now with a decimate modifier. You can see there I've got 0.125 decimation value ratio. Of course, you can increase and decrease that as you like to see what happens. And we still get some, a bit cleaner geometry, but still not ideal, not easy to work with, and it's pretty bad, to be honest. You can see there, this still got this horrible density. So not ideal, not really nice to work with, so I'm not going to do that. But just looking at some of the options, I'm going to put that back to 0.125 just for now. That looks okay, but, well, it doesn't look okay. You've got a lot of broken up sections here. So that's not really a solution that's going to work for us. Let's look at the next step that I tried. Now that's also using a decimate modifier. That's obviously turned off at the moment, but I've reduced the resolution there and the resolution on the bevel. So 12 is the default, and you can see that gives it much more geometry, of course, which looks nice, but not really something you can work with. So fundamentally, this is the principle behind SVGs. This is how they tend to come into Blender. It will vary SVG to SVG, so your mileage may vary. But so anyway, let's look at the next part. So this is the next stage that I took, and I split it into half first. I've converted it to a mesh now. It's no longer a curve. It's now an SVG, a mesh file. So you can see there, this is before, with all this clumping up of the geometry. So I went and manually deleted edges and connected vertices together to create new joins, new edges, and new faces. So with that done, I then I cleaned up basically deleted all of the inner, I selected all of the inner faces at the front, and the front faces basically, and inset them. That gives you a lot more control with that done. And of course you need to go and connect them all as well. Don't leave it as one big n-gon. So if I just jump over here, you can see now, if I turn off the subdiv modifier and the mirror, of course. So you can see that that's the same one as before on the end. And I just went through and cut them up manually with a knife tool. If not, the circle ones, they're really easy to do. I just tabbed into edit mode, selected the knife tool, and then just went through and cut across every other vertex like that. And that gives you some nice quads. So effectively you do that for all of the faces across all of the geometry. It doesn't take that long. It's not that bad, to be honest, but it's something you need to do if you want to have a much nicer and controllable model to work with. And that's really cool. That gives us a lot of control now. It is much better, thank you. Face orientation, always check that, of course. And that's accessible by the drop-down menu at the top there. But anyway, this is a very short video, part 3. Thanks for watching. Join me in part 4 and like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.